And hello everybody, today I have a bit different video on the channel, and this is the Path of Exile movement skill tier list. And this is not only me bragging about what skill is better and worse in my opinion, this is also about what are the supports that are usually involved, what are the unique interaction, and of course what are maybe unique items that are involved. And as usual, all opinions are subjective, you can have your own tier list in your own experience, this is my personal experience. Without further ado, let's go and jump straight in. And we are starting with a very rough start called Blink Arrow. This is basically for both skills, Blink Arrow and Mirror Arrow, because there is counterpart to this skill gem. And the Mirror Arrow, basically you move and create the minion behind. And you can actually create Mirror or Blink Arrow builds with the actual damage. It will cost you quite a bit, but it will actually work. Unfortunate part about that actually you created minion behind, so it just doesn't matter because you are actually in the middle of the monsters dying and your minions behind trying to deal damage. So that is why let's set the bar really low. It's really D tier skill gem, it's limited to the boss. It just functioned backwards and like why? And the next stop is the body swap, very interesting and unique skill gem. This is one of the skill gems that when you think about Path of Exile you will think about the skill gem like that. So when you travel you destroy your body and deal damage with the percent of your life. So at this point you will start like, alright, I will deal a lot of damage if I will play something with a lot of life, like 11k life on some Marauder build or whatever. Unfortunate part about that actual area of effect is just not there. The targeting algorithm is just obnoxious. The GGG I think actually tried to improve that in 3.11, and the most obnoxious part about this skill gem, that is the targeted skill gem, so you need either corpse or either enemy to actually travel, and this basically no damage, no area of effect, and targeted nature of this skill puts it in the lowest tier, the D tier. And next up we have the meme lord, the chain hook. This is the really meme ability in the Path of Exile. This is the attack and the movement skill at the same time, and this is the only skill gem that actually have radius that scales from the rage. And also this is the only skill that actually can generate rage on its own, without rage support for example, or any other interactions in the unique items like for example Chains of Emancipation. So this is really interesting because, well, you can actually deal actual DPS, you can build around chain hook, and the unfortunate very bad thing about this skill gem when it was introduced, it was actually crushing instances. Yes, people tried to make the builds, and when the first league when it was introduced, it basically was unworkable skill gem to a lot of the people, and why people they have a lot of bad blood with skill gem. And right now you can build around it, and there is the anomalous version of the chain hook which scale radius even further, which is insane, makes it really great, like almost widescreen area of effect. This is very solid skill gem. Unfortunate part, this is still targeted movement ability, so it is not really great as movement skill on its own unless you have a really dense map. And next up is the charge dash, very interesting channeling skill, not only movement skill but channeling skill, and that means that you can use actually cast while channeling. And when you use cast while channeling, the skill function, like you start to channel the skill, you are not traveling yet, and you already casting something that you're supporting with the cast while channeling. Really interesting interaction. Unfortunate part about that in the most cases you will want to support that with the faster attacks, so it will be faster, and if you have no like attack speed, it still feels like garbage. And you locked in place, so you are really prone to be just dead when you're locked in place in the current state of the Path of Exile endgame. A really interesting skill, but unfortunately too outdated. Some gimmicks that can be used with that skill, but otherwise, well, I could not see it go above C tier anytime soon. And the next stop we have a really solid skill called Consecrated Path. The only downside of this skill ever, that is still targeted skill gem, just like body swap, like chain hook, you need something to actually latch to cast this skill gem. Anomalous version actually correct that by increasing the range, but it's still not there. The most important part about Consecrated Path that actually the Inquisitor Ascendancy have a lot of buffs going around Consecrated ground. So if you are making the Inquisitor build, actually in some cases you want to use that as your main damage skill. Really nice skill gem, and even if you are not Inquisitor, still the Consecrated ground buff is really nice for life regen and that critical strike chance. Really solid skill gem that you can build around. I would put it something around like B tier. It's non-meta, it's definitely way better than the chain hook, more potent, a lot of interaction with the Inquisitor Ascendancy. And the next top is the Cyclone. This is basically solidly S tier movement skill gem in the Path of Exile. This skill gem was nerfed, brought back, reworked, nerfed again, nerfed on the server side, whatever. It's still the best movement skill gem in the game. And why this is actually the case? First, this is the channeling skill. Second, you move when you channel it, so you're not lashed in the place, which is really nice. Second, it can be actual damage ability, so you can build around that, you can actually use it as a main DPS skill. But why it was so good in the past? For example, when you was channeling the Cyclone, you was stun immune. And still people want it back, but even without that, it's still very solid. Where it actually shines? It shines as a utility skill gem. Since it is attack with the area of effect that scale with the actual the number of channeling, I forgot how it's called, stages, yeah, stages. So it scale, the area of effect scale with the stages, scale with the support gems like area of effect, for example, with the radius of melee attack also. And basically you can support that, for example, with something like life on hit. You can support it with the faster attack to have even more life on hit. You can support it with the blind support, for example, to spread the blinds. So the actual possibilities are quite potent, just straight from the skill gem itself, but also you can use the cast while channeling. For example, on the Necromancer you can use to support it with the Desecrate and, for example, Flash Offering. So when you channel, you trigger both Desecrate and the actual Bone or Flash Offering, or maybe Spirit Offering, whatever. So it's really great utility skill gem, and since it is attack, you still can support it with the actual Fortify support. For example, on one of my builds, the actual BV Archmage Elementalist with the Trinity support, I actually used that skill gem to trigger the cast while channeling curse, the conductivity curse, and the trigger fortify at the same time. So with the 4-link you can do a lot of with the Cyclone on its own. This is why this is one of the most best skill gems in the game. And if you use it as utility and can spare the boot slot, you can actually use the Stampede unique boots and move at 150% of the speed. This is basically makes the Cyclone next level. So this is why this is the solid S tier. And the next up we have Dash, Ordinary Dash, really nice blink movement skill gem. Really interesting, especially when you support it with the second wind support, then it have several cooldowns, and if you support it, not support, like if you have helmet enchantment, you have can have even more cooldowns without second wind support itself, but then it have no cooldown recovery. Where it actually underperforms, yes, it's really nice skill gem, but it underperforms if you are not playing dexterity build. If you have no spare dexterity, if you have very low dexterity, you just could not afford to use this skill gem, and unfortunately if this skill gem is low level, it just have no travel distance. So you really do not have any way, shape or form to use that on the low level. You always wanted to have level 20 on your dash and support it with the second wind support. That is why this is the solidly in the middle, the solid B tier, like above everything else, but still not as good as some another blink skills. And next up is really solid blink skill gem, Flame Dash. This is one of the best movement utility in the game. And why is that so? Well, before it was reworked by GGG several leagues ago, or maybe even not several, whatever. So it was really underperforming, but when they introduced the cooldowns to this skill gem, basically you can move 3 times around and do not need to support it with anything. It is instant, it does not scale with anything. Sometimes you want some like cast speed maybe, but still even without everything, if you like on the build where you have only one gem slot, the flame dash is your answer. Basically you go for the flame dash and you can use the low level flame dash, whatever. This is solidly S tier skill gem, and when you support it with second wind, it just makes and becomes even better. The only instance where you kinda do not really want to use flame dash, when you actually can trigger the elemental equilibrium with the flame damage from the flame dash. Not the great for the skill gem itself, but sometimes actually it can work on your advantage. For example, in my Trinity Elementalist, I used Flame Dash as the trigger of Trinity support, so sometimes downside can be the upside in the Path of Exile. And next up we have Flicker Strike. This skill gem needs the tier of its own, because it's like not above, not below any competition, it just like Flicker Strike. People who play Flicker Strike builds are just, I don't know, they are like humans of different shape and form. I don't know what wrong and good with them at the same time. Basically, this is the skill gem. If you use it for the whole day, you will just induce the Vomitron 2000 on yourself. But on other thought, if you are playing Flicker Strike build, you will never need any movement utility in any way, shape or form. I don't know, like, I don't even know where to put that. The normal person will never play Flicker Strike. The person who plays Flicker Strike will just play Flicker Strike every time and in every single league. So it is solidly somewhere in the middle, in the B tier. And the next up we have Frost Blink. This is the skill gem which was reworked with the dash, flame dash and the Frost Blink itself. And I don't know, I think the GG was in the thought process that there should be the worst skill gem in the Path of Exile, where you have like flame dash, and let's make the skill gem that just underperforms. It have one cooldown less, and only reason why you want to use the Frost Blink over the Flame Dash, if you do not want to trigger Flame Dash Elemental Equilibrium from the fire damage, for example. And I don't know, if you are just lazy and got the quest rewards in the Act 1, then you use Frost Blink. On every single other instance you will just use Flame Dash, and that is why this is very low priority skill gem. This is like solidly C tier, below the dash, below the flame dash. And the next up we have Lip Slam. This is solidly S tier movement skill gem. This is not above the competition. Why? Well, because unlike Flame Dash, for example, you still want to support that with the faster attacks support in the most cases. And the unfortunate part about Lip Slam, that is restricted to several weapon types, so you could not use it on any build that you want. But there are several other things that makes the Lip Slam the best movement skill in the S tier. Well, you can trigger Fortify effect from the Lip Slam 60th attack. You can trigger Endurance Charge on stun because it stun enemies on the full health. So there are two really great interaction already, and the most important part about Lip Slam, why it's better than other attack movement skills, that it actually move over the obstacle. So you can move over obstacle, you can move over ground dot effect. So really a nice skill gem that you want to use for example for your bosser, for example encounters like Maven, for encounters like Sirius, for encounters like Uber Elder, is one of the movement skills like Flame Dash that you want actually to use for the bosser character. And the next skill gem is the Lightning Warp. The reality of this skill gem that you want to actually use it with the lesser duration support at least, and in most cases you want to support it with the Swift Affliction to reduce duration as well, and maybe even faster casting. So you need like 3 support skill gems to make it even bearable, which is like insane. And then you're still stuck with the skill gem that actually locks you in the place while you casting it, and like you wait until it resolved, and by the time you teleport somewhere you're just dead. And the only saving grace that it's gonna deal like some damage on the output. I don't know, like this skill gem, I know there are some possibility to make some meme builds with the lightning warp, and most likely people done that, but I just do not see it used. Like just like charge dash is somewhere in this department where it's just not really usable, just meme movement skill gem. And the next top is Phase Run. This is really interesting skill, was reworked numerous times over the Path of Exile history, and last big rework was of course with the other blink skill gems, movement skill gems. It became instant, and that was I think in the Delph League. In the Delph League it was solid S tier skill gems, it makes you phase, it was really, it had really nice stats, it increased your movement speed. But unfortunately after that it was actually nerfed because like everybody was using this skill gem, and right now it solidly occupies the A tier. Really interesting interaction about this skill gem. Actually you can use it on the cast when damage taken, so you can have it when, for example, you trapped in the middle of the enemy pack and they hit you and the actual phase run is triggered and you can just move from the pack through the monsters. Really nice interaction, but overall it is solid phase and movement skill gem that increase your movement speed. Only downside why it's not S tier anymore, because well, it's nerfed, so it's not, the like flavor is not there. Another unfortunate part about this skill gem that it actually consumes frenzy charges, so when you are running like frenzy charge build, you do not really want this build, this skill gem around, unfortunately. And the next top is shield charge. Really interesting skill gem. You need a shield to actually trigger that, and that already makes it very niche. And another downside of the shield charge, why exactly not like Leap Slam for example, because well, you need the line of sight, you cannot move over the actual obstacles, and that's why I will put it below the Leap Slam and below the phase run, because well, it just a lot of conditional things that you actually want to like experience with the shield charge. And actual upsides why it's so high on the tier list, because well, you can trigger fortify support with the shield charge, and you can also trigger elemental equilibrium from flat edit elemental damage when you gear, and also you can trigger the curses with the hex touch support. So these caveats actually makes the shield charge solidly A tier. And next one is the Smoke Mine, and this one is the garbage tier skill that nobody uses and so on, blah blah blah. Yeah, just kidding, come on. But it's still D tier skill. Why? Well, why this is skill actually really great? Well, because everybody who speedrun Path of Exile will use this. While it consuming your cooldown of your blink skills like Flame Dash, it's still beneficial to run, because when you go through this smoke cloud you have minor speed boost, and they actually end up. But you know what? What is another thing that actually add up? The RCI, Repetitive Strain Syndrome. And if you are not like one of like 3 people who like watch Path of Exile when they are 18-year-old, I know the statistics, like majority of players are not young, let's say, let's put it correctly, in the Path of Exile community. And just I could not place it above any competition, because if you are using this skill gem, it just adds to your RCI and you need to save those hands. That's why I will never use the Smoke Mine myself. And next up is Whirling Blades. Really interesting movement skill. Unfortunately, it's kinda restricted to actual daggers itself, but on the other hand, if you are using daggers, you just have no options. Usually, this is the only movement skill that you can use aside like dash or flame dash, for example. So, Whirling Blades is the skill to use. And the actual benefit of the Whirling Blades that they kinda go through the enemies, and also you can trigger fortify effects and can support this with faster attacks. So usually in the free link setup, Whirling Blades really shines, and the dagger builds just likes this skill. I will put it solidly in A tier, somewhere on the like phase run level. It's really nice, solid movement utility, one of the greatest movement skills in the Path of Exile. And the last but not least is the Withering Step skill. This is a really interesting skill. Unfortunately, it's kinda not really the movement skill, because well, it's really more of the utility movement skill, but where it actually shines, or for example, you can use it on the cast when damage taken setup. So you can use it on the tandem with any guard skill. For example, when you cast when damage taken Immortal Call, the cooldown of the Immortal Call only affects guard skills, it does not affect this movement skill, and you still can add up this skill on top, so you can have additional defense layers. And I know a lot of people for quite some time was using it with the Immortal Call and the actual Withering Step together. So this is why it's really nice, great utility. And another thing about that, if you are playing something like Assassin builds, the builds that do not deal directly damage, so you will not actually remove your phasing effect that you gain from this skill gem, you actually kind of want to use that, because it's really nice elusive buff that increase your defenses, give you withering stacks, and if you give the withering stacks, of course you deal more chaos damage, so it's really nice, for example, for the poison builds. So that is why it's solidly somewhere around A tier. So this was Path of Exile movement skill tier list, and you know what? This blink arrow, I think I am not correctly placing it below everything else. Come on, it is at least useful as frost blink. So if you think that there are other movement skills that are better, if you think and know about some different interactions, please leave them down below. And of course, if you enjoy the content like that, hit that thumb button, because I really don't know what people want to watch, and I really want to make more videos like that, because there are a lot of interesting interaction in the Path of Exile that can be rated, graded, and some of them just better than other, and that's why you can make the tier list of them. So until then, thank you very much for watching, see you in the next video, and have a pleasant day.